Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're listening from Teaneck, New Jersey. This week's Parsha Vayetze, we begin the saga of Yaakov Avinu and are introduced to all the challenges, conflicts, and exciting drama that's part of his story. And knowing that there's so much excitement that's part of the stories of Yaakov Avinu, it's interesting to note one of the things that the Torah describes Yaakov doing quite consistently that's different than any of the Avos before him, and indeed different than many other characters in Tanakh. Both at the beginning and end of this week's Parsha and the beginning of next week's Parsha, Yaakov Avinu is described as a sleeper, as someone who goes to sleep for the night. At the beginning of this week's Parsha, Vayivga b'makom vayalen sham kiva shemesh. Most famously, Yaakov's running away from his brother, sent to Haran by Rivka and Yitzchak, and he goes to sleep. At the end of this week's Parsha, after his ordeal with Lavan, who catches up to him, finds him running away, and they have a contentious conversation, Vayizbach Yaakov zevach bahar vayikra le'achav le'echol lechem. Yaakov throws a party of sorts and eats together with part of Lavan's crew. Vayalinu bahar, and then they go to sleep. And finally, at the beginning of next week's Parsha, as Yaakov is preparing for his encounter with Esav, he davens to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Atzileni na miyad achi miyad Esav. And then, Vayalan sham balaylahu. The Torah makes sure to tell us once again that Yaakov went to sleep that night. Surely many of the other Avos and many other characters in Tanakh spent nights going to sleep. But yet we don't hear much of Vayalan sham, Vayishkav b'makom hahu. We don't hear so much about them specifically going to sleep. What might be so significant about Yaakov's sleep? And why is it that the Torah chooses to tell us specifically about these 3 nights when Yaakov slept, when surely there were many others, putting aside maybe the time that he spent 14 years in Shem Ve'ever, according to the Medrash? But what's so special about these nights that Yaakov went to sleep? So one could claim that really what's significant about the sleep is not so much the fact that he went to sleep, but what happened when he was sleeping. I remember 20 plus years ago at the Gush Alumni Shabbaton in Riverdale, Rav Aaron Zecher Tzadik Livracha spoke at Shalosh Shuddis about the unique characteristics of Yaakov Avinu, and what was it that made Yaakov Avinu special. And I remember Rav Lichtenstein telling us, in Lavan Garti V'Taryag Mitzvot Shamarti, was Yaakov Avinu special because he kept 630 mitzvot, which, I don't know, sounds pretty good to me. But Rav Lichtenstein said that no, what made Yaakov Avinu was the fact that he was a dreamer, that he was a Vayachalom, that he's someone who saw things when other people didn't see it. And I remember that Sikha so distinctly because Rav Lichtenstein, in only his tone and his ability and in Hebrew, asked us, right, what are we dreaming about? Hayem Atarot Liot Bill Gates or Rabbi Akiva Eiger? And while that challenge of Rav Lichtenstein, of what we're dreaming to be and who we're dreaming about, was definitely potent now just as much as it was 20 years ago, it still only explains the first instance of Yaakov going to sleep, where he goes to sleep with a purpose, with a dream that comes during his sleep. In the other 2 episodes, we hear nothing about what happens during the sleep, only what occurs before and after. So I think if we take a look at each of the episodes, we can see that each moment of sleep teaches us a different way in which Yaakov Avinu learns how to deal with a challenge, how to deal with an experience that he's never encountered before and that he's not sure how to move on from. The Sfas Emes very beautifully quotes one of his Rebbeim, the Pshitcha, who says, "Uperish ki hasaga she'ina nisharas ba'adam lemacharaso eino davar shal kayama." That if a person attains something, realizes something, experiences something, but then it's gone the next day after he slept on it, then it's not really a davar shal kayam. It hasn't really become part of his personality. It hasn't really helped him grow. It hasn't really meshed into the person that he's going to become. And I think if we look carefully at each of these episodes of Yaakov sleeping, we will see that each one points to a little bit of a different way in which Yaakov learned something bar kayama, something that then becomes part of his personality. First, Yaakov Avinu is running away from his parents and is not quite sure what's coming next. Vayalin Sham, he goes to sleep, unsure what's beginning and what's ending and where he's supposed to go and what's supposed to happen there. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu shows up to him in a dream and gives him some sense of direction. And to that, Yaakov Avinu responds. After the Vayalin Sham, he wakes up with a sense that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is with him, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is on his side, and knows that whatever is to come, he can promise to Hashem, that if you're with me, you protect me, you follow me along the way, then I'll feel confident, then I'll know what to do. The confidence that comes from sleeping, from taking a step back, and seeing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is with us, that God is on our side, and feeling that confidence that allows him to then continue to the next stages of his mission. Second, at the end of the parsha, I think is almost the opposite. It's not the beginning of a new drama or saga that Yaakov's not sure what to do about, but it's the end of a saga. It's the end of Yaakov's saga with Lavan, where Yaakov has decided that he can no longer live with Lavan Ha'arami, and he needs to instead run away, separate himself from Lavan. And that when Lavan tries to make a bris, Yaakov Avinu remains silent and begrudgingly agrees. Begrudgingly agrees because he knows that the best way to deal with a Lavan is to separate himself from Lavan, to end the episode, to Vayalinu Bahar, to sleep together for one last night, and then Vayashkem Lavan Baboker, Lavan goes Limkomo, V'Yaakov halach l'darko. The sleeping signifies, right, kind of laying to bed the encounter with Lavan, and dealing with that crisis by ending it and by stepping away from it. Instead of the first episode where he's stepping into his relationship with Hashem, finding God on his side and using that to move forward, Yaakov is sleeping, right, to symbolically demonstrate to us the end of what has occurred up until this point, and that now he's putting a closure on his time with Lavan, on his relationship with Lavan, and is able to successfully move on from that through that closure. Third and finally, and perhaps the most strange one, Vayalin Sham Balaylahu, right in the middle of all of Yaakov's preparations for his encounter with Esav, he goes to sleep. Why? Why not go to sleep after he's done with the preparations? I think that the message here is clear as well. Yaakov, once again, is in a state of uncertainty. He's not sure what to do. And from his first episodes, he's learned, right, that he cannot run away from Esav the same way he ran away from Lavan. And that he thinks Hashem is going to be with him, but he doesn't know exactly how Hashem is going to help him. So he davens to Hashem because that's what he knows how to do. That's what he did at the beginning of this week's parsha. Davens to Hashem, Atzileni na miyad achi miyad Esav, please help me. But then what? Now what do I do? And he goes to sleep maybe hoping that once again he's going to have a dream, and indeed no dream occurs. Instead, Yaakov Avinu wakes up with the realization that he needs to act. That now's the time for Hishtadlus. Now's the time not to rely on Hashem to just take care of things, but to also do things on his own, and to take initiative and find a way to send a mincha to Esav, to split up his camp, to prepare for the Milchama and the Doron, the other components of dealing with challenges. So we see through the different episodes in which Yaakov sleeps throughout the Parshiot of Vayetze and Vayishlach, we see different ways in which someone can take the opportunity to sleep on something and really internalize it. Like the Pshizka said, make it a davar shel kayama. Make it something that we can learn from. Hopefully, right, we will never face the challenges that Yaakov Avinu faces, but can know that when we're unsure about our future or what might happen next, sometimes the answer might just be, sleep on that and see what we wake up in the morning with, and how we might continue forward. Sleep on that, and good Shabbos.